Hey, what's up guys? This is Anthony from Anthony's Customs, and for this review we're going to be looking at the Play Arts Kai Dark Knight Trilogy Batman figure. This is obviously the Batman based on the movie design, and it's a pretty cool figure. I'm happy with it as a whole, but there are definitely quite a few problems, at least that I have with it. Maybe other people aren't going to be so picky. That's likely the case since I am known for being so picky in these reviews. But either way, here he is. I do like him. Get that out of the way right now. It's a cool figure. It stands, depending on how you pose him, of course, but pretty much in a straight up pose. About 9.5 inches tall, right around there. So standard size for Play Arts. I know they vary from 9 to 10 inches typically, but he's right in the middle of that, so I'm okay with it. And as I said, at first glance, it's definitely a good figure. It's a nice display piece. It looks just like the movie Batman. And he comes with a lot of good stuff, so that's pretty good with me. He does only have the one head, but it looks pretty good. It looks enough like the Bale Batman that I'm okay with it. As you can see, mine has kind of a chip on the front of his nose. It came that way, so I'm trying to get that replaced, but I don't know how that's going to work out. Otherwise, I'll have to touch it up a little bit better and get that fixed. But either way, he's got the one head, and he's got a total of 7 hands. He's got a fist hand for each side. There's his left fist. Decent detailing. The paintwork isn't really up to par with some of the other Play Arts figures. The sculpt is okay. I think the details could have been a little bit better in some areas. So he's got a fist for either side, of course. Batman needs his fists. He's got 2 of these hands, one for each side, just kind of an open hand that he could probably use for various things, various accessories, but I don't think these are meant for anything in particular. Then he's got this hand, which I think is clearly meant for the grappling gun, since it looks the most like a gun hand, and I haven't tried this yet, so let's see how he holds it. Oh wow, they used a really stiff plastic, but you can get it in there pretty easily, and he holds it perfectly, really well. We'll put that on him in a second. He has one hand. These are both for his right hand, by the way. The gun hand and the batarang hand are both for the right hand. And there's the batarang, so that's another one of the accessories. And that can go in either way, however you want to have him hold it. So that's cool. He holds it. It doesn't snap in or fit in tightly, snugly, but it's enough to where it's not going to be a problem. And then he also has one kind of open left hand with a gripping type of pose, I guess you could say. And he's got the little bat bomb thing there, which he doesn't hold the closed one very well unless you wedge it into his fingers. And even then it's not the best, but he does hold it. And then he's got the open one, which I think is cooler anyway. And you can wedge that in a lot easier. It's a softer plastic, and so he's got that. So those are some pretty cool accessories, I think. He also comes with a display stand, or a flight stand, or base, whatever you want to call it. They call it a display stand. It's the standard design that we've been getting with all of the Play Arts lately. It turns out to look something like this. It's on the card that's inside the box, behind the blister. The blister is black for Batman, so you shouldn't have any trouble tearing this out and making it look bad. And there you can see some of the other hands and stuff. It's a cool display stand. I may or may not use it. I haven't decided yet, but for now, it's staying on the card. Okay, and so like I said, I would show you the hand in action. So there's the batarang hand in action. It's posable enough. I kind of wish he was holding it at a bit more of an angle, but you can get it to work out okay. So there's that one, and then the grapple gun hand, we'll just peg that in. And as you can see, the pegs don't have too much of a catch on them, so they interchange pretty easily, which is always a good thing. And he holds that really nicely, makes for a good display piece. Looks good. I'm happy with that. Good work all around on the gun. Let's just put his fist back in for the sake of the review. Okay, as far as articulation goes, the head is on a ball peg in the neck and at the bottom, or in the top of the neck going into the head and at the bottom of the neck. So the neck is individually articulated from the head. I do wish the head could move a little bit more on top of the neck. He doesn't look up very well. He looks down okay though, so that's not too much of a problem. I mean, you'll definitely be okay with it. I just wish it looked like he had a little bit more of a chin. There's not a whole lot going on there, but it's okay. The shoulders, standard play art style. They have the butterfly joint in there, so let it swing out like that. Then we have the ball disc or ball hinge for the shoulder. That's really tight, be careful with that. Full range of motion. The bicep swivel, that's also super tight. It doesn't have a whole lot of range of motion there, so be pretty careful with that as well. I mean, you can get it to do what you need it to do, just be cautious. Then you have the ball hinge for the elbow, standard ball disc where it swivels in the bicep and in the forearm and has the ratcheting in there. Doesn't have the best range of motion though, not even a full 90 degrees. Just shy of 90, maybe it's 90, I don't know, but I always like to have a little bit more than 90 to get some good posing done, but this one at best is 90 degrees, so that's a little bit of a bummer. It's not a huge deal. Of course, the wrist is the same as always, just like the elbow, it swivels at both ends and is ratcheted, so that's not a problem. Torso, standard Play Arts design. It's a double ball peg for the upper torso, so you can move this around independently. It doesn't move forward as much as I would like. It does swing a little bit front and back. As you can see, there's a little bit of a flex there, but not nearly as much as I would have liked, so that's a bit of a bummer. The lower torso is just a ball peg that goes from the upside down T in the crotch. It goes up into the lower abdomen, so that piece moves completely independently, so that's really good. The groin is a floating crotch piece or groin piece, or whatever you want to call it. And you can reposition that however you want to once you get it in the way you want it. It does sometimes get tucked underneath the lower torso, so just get that fixed and then you're good to go. The hips are ratcheted ball pegs, so it's basically a ball hinge. They ratchet from the side and front and back. Full range of motion. It can get a little bit ugly, but you can usually get the floating piece to cover up all the ugly parts as much as you need to. So that's okay. And then the ball swivels, or the thigh swivels on the ball peg itself. So pretty good range of motion there. Double jointed knees. They are still the ugly Play Arts knees, but they're not as bad as I've seen. Of course, if you do them all the way, they don't look so great, but they're not the best, that's for sure. You should be okay with them though. I mean, as long as you only use one of them, like I always say, you'll find one that looks good enough in whatever pose you're using to where it won't be too much of an issue. The ankles have the same ball hinge as the elbows. They swivel at the top and at the boot and are ratcheted. The swivel in the boot is at an angle so that you can give them a bit of an ankle rocker without actually using the joint itself. But if you want to, just keep spinning it around until the joint's going sideways. I didn't do a good job there, but you can get the foot pretty far sideways if you need to. So the articulation's okay there as well. Now here's where I have some problems. One is the arms look just a bit short compared to the gigantic legs. So either the arms are too short or the legs are too long. I'm not sure, but it just looks just a bit off, and it's a little problem for me. It's not a huge problem, but he could look a little bit better proportionally. You know, I think the thighs just look really long to me, and I think that's what's throwing it off. But maybe I'm over-exaggerating. Maybe it's just a little bit. I don't know. It's definitely not enough of an issue to not buy him, but it's something that stood out. Now, the cape works like the other Batman capes. These floating pieces here are supposed to be connected here, so I wish those stuck down a little bit more instead of up so much and made a gap. Like, I don't like that big gap. But the top of the cape works like the other Batman capes to where this is flexible. Not as flexible since it doesn't go over the shoulder, but it's still flexible. And then each piece of the cape is articulated like the first Batman we got, to where it's a ball hinge, just like the elbows, where it pegs into the back and it swivels on that, and then the cape itself can swivel on that peg, the bottom peg, and then it's ratcheted. So you can get the cape to do some things, and you can probably get some nice posing done, except for the fact that they made the pieces pretty narrow, so you can't separate them really at all without having a big gap. So that's one of my issues, is that there's a big gap in the cape as soon as you try to spread it out. I wish they had a little bit more of an overlap so that you could give him the real windswept cape look like that without having that huge gap. I don't like that. The other thing I don't like about the cape is each side has these really exaggerated curls on the end, especially on this side. It doesn't look very good, I don't think. But it's not too big of a deal, so it's definitely something I can live with. The quality control wasn't the best on this guy. I had a problem with the shoulder that I fixed. The nose was scratched, and then a couple other little spots here and there that I didn't particularly care for. The sculpt on this guy and the paint, it's not nearly as noticeably good as some of the other Play Arts figures. The sculpt is good enough, but a lot of the things that I think should have some more detail to them, like that under mesh area, it's a very shallow sculpt, so it doesn't look quite as good, and then the paint doesn't accent it nearly as much as I was hoping it would. So it doesn't stand out as being such a great figure when compared to some of the other figures that they've come out with recently. So little things like that just stand out. It's nothing bad. These little hook things, blades, I don't know what you call those actually, but these are soft plastic or rubber, so I guess they could tear out, but they're not going to break, so don't worry about that. You know, it's a good figure. It's just a couple little things that stood out to me as I was looking over it. So definitely not anything that's a reason to not get it, but just a couple things. So I'll stop rambling now, and there it is, guys. I'll have the Bane review up for you tomorrow, so stay tuned for that, and stay tuned for some more figure reviews, some custom figures, and some other good stuff. And in the meantime, keep collecting.